Coming up in the lead today, say you've used only a quarter of an expensive data bundle and its 30-day use period is about to expire. Well, the Independent Communications Authority, or Icasa for short, has now quietly gazetted new rules that force major mobile companies to roll this unused data over to the following month so that you don't lose it. It's just one of a handful of new cell phone regulations discussed in detail with business journalist William Brederode next.
The mobile operator must make some sort of provision at no cost to you to roll over a portion or that remaining credit into a new period, at least once. Now, I don't know if that means how long they are obligated to roll it over. But essentially what Icasa has done is through this provision, it is trying to guard against consumers reaching the end of the validity period of a bundle that they purchased with substantial amounts of it remaining underutilized and having that just disappear.
In our trending topic, Oscar season's finally upon us, and we review the upcoming Rachel McAdams thriller Send Help with our resident movie critic Joel Ontong. And finally, we recall one of the mother city's biggest fault fires in living memory with On This Day in South African History, heard later in the show.
New episodes of The Lead air Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m.
In Ropey's Pointless Braai Quiz for today, the mayoral committee member of which Northwest city is now facing charges of drunken driving and assault following a routine traffic stop this weekend? I'll give you the answer as to which city that is at the end of the show after On This Day in South African History. Get it right, you might win a prize, you might not. My name's Graeme Robenheimer, this is The Lead, and this is the South African Story. Moving to our top story today, well, when he's not chasing after the latest tech trends, he's busting big business developments. It's our lovely friend, News 24 business journo William Brederode, live in our Cape Town studios. How's it going? How are you?
Excellent. Thanks, Graeme.
Fantastic. Yeah. It's your first lead of 2026. I hope it's going to be a good one. It's
not the last.
Yes.
Let's hope.
It's going to be a bit of a contentious topic. Of course, data in South Africa has been, some would argue, a sensitive issue, the prices of which. Icasa, the Independent Communications Authority, on Friday snuck in some changes to how data is governed in terms of its depletion and expiry and the rollover of bundles, etc. Before we get into what those changes are, when do they come into effect and how binding are they currently as it stands?
So they were snuck in. Late on the Friday in the government gazette, this is a secret to try and get less coverage. But they follow a 2-year process, started in 2024, to review some rules around the expiry of data, essentially. They are now regulation, but the regulations specify that the rules come into effect in 12 months' time. So, yeah.
Okay, so we've got a year to really mull it over, and
which is going to be important, but
we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Before we get into the rules, I thought we can play a quick, fun little sort of game to see what the prices are of current data and packages in South Africa. You'll remember, of course, there was this big thing called the COVID-19 pandemic. I don't know if you remember it. But around that early part of 2020, here we had the Competition Commission coming out and saying it got big buy-in from all the major local telecommunications companies, and they basically said, look, we all agree data needs to, in terms of the price, needs to fall, and they all have sort of agreed to this binding statement. And apparently, according to the latest findings, data prices haven't shifted that much since then.
It's an interesting one. So I think my point of departure on this is to look at the international studies which do take place and try and put countries in the context of the international reality of providing these services.
Right.
And my understanding is South Africa comes out roughly middle of the pack in terms of mobile data prices, which in a middle-income country is roughly what you would expect, right?
Okay.
So I understand why consumers feel the brunt of their mobile contracts, but I think the wider reality is that we're roughly average by international standards.
But it wasn't always the case, right?
It wasn't always the case, and of course, the lower prices go, it's a fantastic thing for the country. It makes this it brings the online world to more people who previously couldn't access it because of price. And beyond the mobile companies, there's some fantastic things going on with making I suppose, the internet available to more people. There's been a big push of fiber into townships with some very competitively priced bundles, like 7 rand a day sort of thing.
Sure.
So I think it's one way. I still understand why consumers feel the pinch, but in my view, it's moving in the right direction.
Okay, cool. Let's look at those current prices, right? So I did a quick little check. I tested out the 3 main sort of cell phone providers in South Africa today. Of course, we know them as Vodacom, MTN, and Cell C. I'm a Cell C customer.
Telecom these days is actually the third biggest.
So Cell C's been knocked off the.
Cell C's knocked off the perch, but they're
I didn't
also
get the
coming
news.
back.
I didn't get the news, and I took the 30-day validity period for their 1.5 gig bundle that they offer. Right, so it's 30 days, 1.5 gigs. Vodacom is the cheapest out of the 3 that we chose, which is $95. Cell C and MTN are both 99 Rand. But here's the interesting thing, William. Compare that to a 30-day, same package, 1.5 gigs in Tanzania. You're out on the beach in Zanzibar, you're enjoying, you're sipping your cocktails, you need a local provider, Zantel. Guess how much their 1.5 gigs costs there?
Are we lower or higher?
Much lower. So it's
Okay.
62 Rand 59 cents
Yeah.
for the same package. Now, the argument may be Zantel's not as good as these particular 3, and it's a different country and a different economy, like you say, which you've already alluded to. I just thought it would be
Maybe
an
a
interesting
counterpoint,
test.
which I found interesting. 'Cause I was recently in England, and to be honest, I found the coverage to be rubbish.
It's poor, eh?
At multiple points, I'd be on LTE. And then you can't really load anything.
Yeah, I was
So,
on GIFGAF. I'd had a bad time as well.
having come back, I am a lot more grateful for our companies because, I can't remember the last time I went somewhere where I didn't have coverage. And my contract's not amazing, but all right.
Yes.
So interesting comparison on both sides, that there may be some other countries getting it cheaper, but equally compared to England, seems like our situation's pretty good.
Yeah, you're not alone there. And Bruce Woodfield, and he has his show that comes out on Thursdays. He complained in one of our meetings about the poor coverage there. I had a really bad time. So yeah, you're definitely not alone. It's 100% a thing. Let's go into the changes. This is what everybody's sort of been waiting for, right? Icasa has come out with these new regulations. Take us from the top. Let's go through them sort of like one by one. There's this amended rules for automatic rollover. What does that mean, and what changes?
Okay. I have the wording here. Should I read it out? Because I
Sure.
think it's going to be useful. A licensee, being the mobile operator, must, at the end of a bundle, I looked into it, is a data contract, a voice contract, SMSs, or a combination of them. A licensee must, at the end of a bundle, roll over any unused bundles or portions thereof at least once, and subject to the same conditions that the bundle was originally under. What does that mean? And there's some exceptions to that. Let's first mention that. The exceptions are that does not apply to any bundle with a validity shorter than 7 days. It also doesn't apply to uncapped bundles and promotional bundles. There's some exceptions there.
So let's use the 30 days then, and the 1.5 gigs as the example
Perfect.
we've been using
Perfect.
thus far.
What it seems to mean is that if you bought, how many gigs did we say? 5 gigs.
1.5 gigs.
1.5 gigs. And come the end of your term, you've only used 250 megabytes. The mobile operator must make some sort of provision at no cost to you to roll over a portion or that remaining credit into a new period, at least once. Now, I don't know if that means how long they are obligated to roll it over. But essentially what Icasa has done is, through this provision, it is trying to guard against consumers reaching the end of the validity period of a bundle that they purchased with substantial amounts of it remaining underutilized and having that just disappear or be subject to some sort of additional payment where the mobile operator says, okay, you're reaching the end of your term, but you got to pay us a fee to keep it longer. So it's a fundamental change to the way in which data, SMSs, and voice credit expires.
Yes.
That's what that rule seems to be.
It's not quite the 3 years that members of parliament were pushing for in one fiery debate last year, but it's at least a move positively in the right direction, right?
For consumers, certainly. I mean, it's an incredibly annoying feeling having large amounts of credit go off, essentially, and just disappear.
Because you feel like you're losing money, right?
Now, alluding, the mobile operators don't see it the same way, that it's a win for consumers. But many consumers will feel happy that at that provision.
Yeah, and I want us to get to specifically Vodacom CEO's views on this and the analogy and the metaphor being used in the construction of how it feels or justifies the validity periods for different data bundles. Okay, depletion notifications. So, I mean, I get a data saver thing that is inherent within the software of my particular cell phone that I use, and it will tell me if I reach 2 gigs of usage. Hey, slow down, Graeme. Stop going onto random sites while you're out in the streets. You're about to lose how much you ever have. But now this is going to become even more rigid.
So I think that's a good point. I think a lot of the operators do this anyway. But the new rule is that the operator must send you a notification when you reach 50% depletion, 80% depletion, and 100% depletion of whatever your bundle was. An important rider to that is if you get annoyed by all that, you can opt out. So you don't have to be subjected to that. But I think the logic there being, let's let people know when they're getting toward the end of their bundle so that they don't arrive in a situation where they run out and then a more expensive product starts running.
Right.
So make sure consumers are empowered with knowing how much they have left.
Because
that's the new rule.
Yeah, that's equally important when it takes us to the next point, which is the out-of-bundle charges, right? So you would want to know if you're suddenly going to be charged for something that you didn't necessarily agree with if you still want to keep the data going. What does the new changes say when it comes to out-of-bundle charges? And give us an example if you can.
Yeah, let's start with the example. As I understand it, under the new rules, if you had your 1.5 gigabyte 30 days, and you fully deplete it, but let's say you also had 100 Rand in airtime credit. The operator cannot start deducting your airtime credit once your 1.5 gigs runs out without you opting in to allow for out-of-bundle charges. So that can still happen, but now the user has a choice around whether that those out-of-bundle charges start running.
Makes sense to me. I didn't even know we did not have a choice.
So, yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the status quo was, but that is now a rule that you have the right to opt out of having those out-of-bundle charges. But again, that will come into effect in 12 months.
Thanks for the reminder. Expire first, use first. Explain this to us.
As I understand it, imagine you have 2 products, one of which expires in 3 days, another expires in a month. This rule will make sure that the mobile data, let's say, on your closer to expiring package starts running first. So you don't deplete your data that you have a whole month to use. You rather start with depleting the data which will expire in the next 3 days anyway.
Okay.
So it's like it changes the sequence. It necessitates that the sequence in which bundles are depleted is in order of the earliest expiry. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay,
that makes sense. Good. Yeah, that just means that the validity period that is running out quicker, the companies must force for that to be the focus of your usage first before the longer validity period would then kick in.
Exactly.
Yes.
Logic being, why would you want, if you've got 30 days to use something, why would you want that to start depleting if you've got something else which is going to be depleted faster?
Sounds fair. And then the last one, transfer rights. What's this?
This seems to be that Icasa is making it so if I have a 1.5 gigabyte 30-day bundle and I'm on Vodacom, and I know you're on Cell C, but let's say, for example, you are on Vodacom, I could transfer my bundle to you, and you could enjoy it at exactly the same terms that I enjoyed. And I believe that must be done at no cost. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe we shouldn't include that, 'cause I'm not sure.
Okay.
But essentially, I can transfer unlimited amounts of my bundle to you, supposing you're on the same operator as I am, and that must be done at exactly the same terms that I have. Again, not 100% sure what the status quo is on that, but that is now, in 12 months' time, will be the new minimum standard that operators must follow.
So, in other words, there's a whole lot of more choice here when it comes to us buying our data bundles, and it seems a lot more of a liberal sort of exchange here. And thank Flip for Icasa coming along and saying this, but I can't imagine that the cell phone companies are all too chuffed to have to go through all the changes at the moment. Is there an appeals process? What happens next?
So here's what we know so far. So in the government gazette notice, Icasa published the new regulations. That's actually a very short document, a couple of pages. But after that, they published a reasons document explaining some of the back and forth and representing the views of the mobile operators. So we don't have their reaction yet to the new rules now that they've been published, but we have their submissions as part of the process. And to say they are angry is perhaps an understatement. So there are a couple grounds that I think we should discuss. I'll rattle through them and we can go into them. The one is that they think Icasa doesn't have the mandate to make these changes. And that's more of a legal argument. They go into the Electronic Communications Act and justify why they think Icasa is not empowered to make these changes. Icasa responds and essentially says it disagrees and thinks it is empowered to make the changes. So there's a legal dispute there. The mobile operators claim that by setting these standards, it's a form of anti-competitive behavior, that mobile operators should be allowed to compete on the terms they offer their customers. That if they want to price a product more cheaply but have a more rigid expiry system, why should they not be empowered to do that? So they raise a competition argument that these rules go too far in setting a standard which they should actually be allowed to compete on.
Or you could just be like, Vodacom, and out of the three that we chose was 4 rand cheaper than everybody else. But anyway, carry on.
They also took issue with the fact that Icasa did not conduct an impact assessment before introducing the changes. In other words, what will happen as a result of these new rules being introduced? They argue that that was a foundational process that should have been conducted before introducing the rules. Now, lastly, and I think this is the one where your ears should prick up, is both Vodacom and MTN, and I think Telkom and Cell C align themselves quite strongly with them, argued that there is a high likelihood of price increases to bundles that will result from these rules. So from a network planning perspective, forcing the operators to roll over the bundles at least once, they argue will drive up the price of them providing the services.
Because they want to make more money. That's it.
They want to make more money.
And they want to be more competitive, yes.
Yeah. They want to make more money, but they, and maybe now we should segue into
what the the Vodacom
look at it,
CEOs.
and where the difference in perception between consumers and the mobile operators comes in.
So give us the context. Where did the Vodacom CEO make the following statements? I thought very, very interestingly, it's a good metaphor, it's a good analogy. This was with the parliamentarians grilling last year, right? Because a lot of MPs came out, they were quite unison in the view that data prices should fall, that it shouldn't expire, and that there should be like a 3-year validity period.
So there was a session somewhere in the middle of last year, I can't remember the month, in Parliament before the Department of Communications and Digital Technology Portfolio Committee, where senior representatives of all the big mobile operators and the industry body, the Association of Communications and Technology, were all present. And there was supposed to be a lot of different topics covered, but almost all the MPs zeroed in on this issue of data expiring. And from the DA to the MK to the EFF to the NC, all the parties essentially said, come on guys, why? Why must data expire? Was in slightly better words, but that was the thrust of it.
I mean, off the basis of it, you would think they would have a great argument, because it is quite an absurd idea that something that you pay for would expire, right?
So here's the way they look at it. And
other than food, which you put in your stomach and can still save, and whatever the case may be.
So the way they I think the Vodacom South Africa CEO articulated the whole matter the best.
From the company's point of view.
From the company's point of view. He said that the trick is, or the way they look at it is not as if data is a commodity such as bread or something you'll find in the store. It's more like a Gautrain ticket, in that a Gautrain ticket gives you the right to take the Gautrain either on a certain day or a certain time or between certain hours and back, or whatever it may be. It does not necessarily give you the right to use the Gautrain whenever you like. And that's how they look at mobile data, that you are buying the right to use that data that you have purchased for a period of time. The other analogy that was drawn is if there's a lot of traffic on a road, and sometimes it would be beneficial to have 5 lanes. Do you have 5 lanes there if peak traffic is only at a short period of time? Do we need to have 5 lanes across South Africa? And that is how they raise the point of managing their mobile network, is if everybody has the right to access the network whenever they like without any expiry, does that mean there may be times where there's excessive demand on the network and they can't plan for that adequately? Therefore, they have to raise the prices to make that situation tenable. That's the thrust of their argument. They look at the commodity a different way than I suppose we do as consumers.
And after spending your time looking at all of this a lot closer than I have, because I deal with multitudes of different topics on the lead, what is your conclusion then?
So this is
as William Brederode,
this is an opinion,
the consumer and business journalist.
This is an opinion. Here's where I draw the line. As I understand it, and this is not an ad, but Capitec, through their MVNO, their mobile virtual network operator, they offer packages without any expiry. And I had a look, and they seem very well priced to me. So part of that is because you're a bank account holder, you also get to benefit from the mobile network. There's like a ecosystem incentive there. But if Capitec is able to offer data plans without expiry and at an affordable rate, that seems to suggest to me that it's a viable way to structure your plans. Now,
if you're with the bank.
But why couldn't that be the case if you weren't with the bank?
Aha.
So that's what makes me side more with the consumer than the network operator. But
Sure.
I'm not insensitive to the network operator's argument. And
I'm glad you didn't say plight.
and I do think it's possible that as a result of these regulations, there will be some price increases, which, going back to our discussion at the start, is that's a negative outcome. So Vodacom made the point quite strongly in the reasons document that they said something to the effect that this is actually not a consumer-friendly set of rules. I lean towards the fact that it is, but it's worth considering the difference of opinion.
Yes. Because them also saying this is not consumer friendly, but all the power lies with them in increasing the prices in any case, does it not?
Well, they'd argue that there's a cost of doing business. And going back to our earlier point, I mean, mobile operators have done a fantastic job of getting service to far-flung areas of the country.
Yeah.
And good service.
In the absence of Starlink.
And there is a good, you can imagine the costs associated with having, I'm not sure exactly of the numbers, but I'm pretty sure their 4G, Vodacom and MTN's 4G networks cover 99 point whatever it is of the population. There's got to be a cost associated with that. So
definitely from an infrastructure point of view, sure.
So I think it's great that Icasa is going to empower something like the notification thing. That just gives the consumer more information to make informed choices. That's a great thing. I think the rollover, where I think it's quite reasonable, is it does not apply to, and this is all opinion, by the way, it does not apply to bundles with an expiry shorter than 7 days. Which means if you're a consumer looking for a very cheap, fast access bundle, you still have the option of buying one with an expiry of less than 7 days where no additional rollover requirement has now been put in place. So in that sense, to me, that there's a little bit of a balance struck between the need to protect consumers from having a large amount of their credit expire at the end of a period and making sure that there are as cheap as possible bundles available so that everybody, as many people as possible, can access these services. There's a balance struck in the regulations, but different parties will see it totally differently.
Yes. Is there an appeals process?
So, to my knowledge, not formally within... These regulations are regulations, and the public participation process is now over. I've reached out to all the mobile networks to ask what their next steps are. That was only this morning, so I haven't had responses yet.
Sure.
I did get a short response from the Association of Comms and Technology, the industry body, which represents them, just indicating they're still studying the regulations,
right.
But they are aggrieved that their submissions as part of the process were not factored in to the final regulations. So
I guess we'll see in the next year.
The looming risk for the introduction of these regulations would be a challenge in a court of law. And the fact that there is a year to implement these regulations does give the mobile networks a considerable amount of time to build legal arguments against these regulations. And through the public participation process, they already indicated that they think it's not on solid legal ground,
yes.
which Icasa disagrees with. So
I wonder if it's not going to go to another settlement sort of scenario where they're going to all have to meet behind closed doors and agree to certain measures.
That's the other risk that, or the other factor that consumers should be very aware of is even though it's indicated that these regulations will come into effect in 12 months, it seems like the possibility of a legal challenge is quite significant.
Yeah.
But that's untested at this stage.
Absolutely. I'll leave it with this. The Competition Commission's August 2025 cost of living report found that internet costs wireless have increased by only just 1% between January 2022 and April 2025. And I think if we look at those current data prices going to the start of our conversation, it's great that they've managed to sort of plateau for a while, right? That we can get 1.5 gigs for under $100. May it long continue. May long bring us scoop after scoop. William Brederode, thank you so much for being on the lead. Thank you for dispelling all of that and giving us a little bit of a clear image. Let's hope it doesn't go to court and that the consumers win at the end of the day. Chat later.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Graeme.
You're listening to the latest edition of The Lead on News 24 with Graeme Rowenheimer. If you've got an opinion on what you've heard so far, drop us a short voice note on our WhatsApp hotline. That's 072 562 3179. Trending topic.
Moving to our trending topic today, well, he's the local box office all wrapped up in one. He's our local arts and entertainment journalist. That's Joel Ontong, of course, with his very latest take on upcoming flicks. And of course, it's Oscar season here in 2026. Joel, how's it going? Welcome to your debut edition of The Lead, baby.
Thank you for having me. How
Absolutely.
are you doing?
Yeah, great. Just a pity the popcorn machine in the office. I didn't know we had one and it's not working.
It's tragic.
Yeah, we need to fix that. Oscar nominations, no surprises. Leo DiCaprio up on the lists there. Anything catching your eye?
Well, I'm quite excited for Timothée Chalamet. I think that this is his best chance yet to win that Oscar. That's kind of been eluding him all these years.
So let's go through those main three categories and then you can give me your quick take quite nice and quickly. Best picture, we've got Begonia, Frankenstein, F1, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, The Secret Agent, Sentimental Value, Sinners and Train Dreams. Go, your answer.
I just want to say this is a great year for movies. I mean, you have Sentimental Value. That's a great international film. I'm going to go with One Battle After Another. My favorite was Marty Supreme. But again, Sinners is there. You don't skip on Sinners.
And then Best Actor, Timothée Chalamet, as you say, Leo DiCap, Ethan Hawke, Michael B. Jordan. Are you going to stick with Timothy? Okay, cool. Best Actress, of course, we've got Jessie Buckley, Rose Byrne, Kate Hudson, Renate Rensby, as well as Emma Stone. Thoughts?
I think this one is going to go to, not Emma Stone. I think the Academy has given her flowers. Time to focus on somebody else. So, Jessie Buckley, Hamnet. Jessie Buckley.
And then Best Director, I thought we can just throw this one very quickly. Paul Thomas Anderson's for One Battle After Another, Ryan Coogler for Sinners, Josh Safdie for Marty Supreme, Joachim Trier for Sentimental Value, and then Chloe Zhao for Hamnet. Your call?
Again, a great category. I'm going to go with PTA, but I think Coogler is snapping at his heels a bit.
Okay,
but
cool.
I'm going to go PTA.
Okay, cool. And then we're going to come back after March.
Yeah.
Once the Oscars is done.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see Conan O'Brien's back as host. I mean,
fantastic. He was hilarious last year.
He's absolutely the best talk show host, and I'm so sad that he doesn't have a show anymore because we left with Kimmel and Fallon now.
Yeah. I loved the joke he did last year about balls in your court, Estonia. I don't know if you remember that, but it was hilarious to me. But we're going to talk about the movie that we saw.
Absolutely. So, lead listeners, myself and Joel got invited to the Send Help premiere. We're both on Disney's hot take list, if you will. And here I'm rocking up at the V&A waterfront here in Cape Town to go and watch the flick. And who do I bump into? Of course, Joel, our resident arts and entertainment journalist. And so we decided to get seats together and watch the flick together. We both keep dead quiet and watch the film. We're great people to watch movies with. We're not going to talk.
I completely agree.
Just to give you the synopsis, this movie's coming out quite soon, at the end of this month, right? 30th of January.
This week.
Two colleagues become stranded on a deserted island, the only survivors of a plane crash. And then on the island, they must overcome past grievances and work together to survive. But ultimately, it's a battle of wills and wits to make it out alive. And that's according to IMDb. Of course, we're going to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. Big actors in this. I mean, Rachel McAdams, Dylan O'Brien, and then directed, and I didn't know this when I plumped my bum on the seat, but Sam Raimi, yeah. And they're styling this as a horror thriller. I mean,
yeah, it's I would say it has thriller elements, but it's more of like a horror comedy. Actually, it's more of it's like a survival comedy. I think the horror elements are there, but they kind of like catch you by surprise. You know, it gets gory and like quite grotesque out of nowhere, and I think that adds to the comedy of it. You know, I mean, you kind of have like it almost pretends to be this rom-com, but it never gets there. You know, it's like this enemies thing, and it is funny. It was entertaining. I don't think it was one of his best movies, though. I will say that.
Sure. Okay. I quite enjoyed it just because, and you said this so brilliantly after we had spent like 2 days watching it, and then I saw you in the newsroom. It's a Sunday movie.
Yeah.
It's that 8 o'clock Sunday movie that it's going to entertain you. It's not necessarily going to be on your like must rewatch list 10 years from now, but it's fun.
Yeah, you know, I was watching the original Anaconda, you know, the ETV Anaconda last night, because I was like, I have to watch this properly. I'm a South African. And it stirred the same feelings in me as Send Help. Sure. You know, it's something that's easy to watch. I think that if you just, you know, if you have a free Friday night and you want to go to the movies and you just kind of want to watch something lightweight, something that's a bit, you know, bit quirky, but camp maybe, I think Send Help I highly recommend it. But also, it was just maybe too silly for me, you know. I liked Rachel McAdams' performance. It's a very cartoonish character she plays, but she does a great job at it. I think Dylan O'Brien is a good mold to that. And
you really want to punch his face. His character, you just want to punch in the face.
And the thing is, he has like a thing. He can be a charming in a role, but he can also be, you know, a jerk. And I think the jerkness is perfect. Like he's just the stench of obnoxions around him, and I appreciated that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to say that there is a big twist, so to speak, right? And that's okay without giving away too much.
You don't see it coming.
You literally don't.
You think you do, and then it takes like another 180, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't even think of that. And I mean, the comedy of it was really good. I thought there were a few scenes, especially with Rachel McAdams, where she just has great comedic timing. But I do think that the survival element of it was very predictable. Yeah, it's very generic. Yeah. It's only towards maybe the last 20 minutes where things become like genuinely interesting.
Yes, all the little breadcrumbs start forming into the big puzzle picture, right? Yeah. That was a bit formulaic. I mean, there's definitely like tropey, formulaic parts to it. I didn't like the CGI. I thought it was very like, you could see it was CGI, and I feel like we've come a long way with CGI technology. Yeah. And I feel like those one or two parts really like detracted from the overall feel of the flick, because I was leaning in my mind to a more like dark comedy sort of side of things. Yeah, I really didn't feel scared.
I think it would have benefited from like practical effects a bit more.
Yeah,
I think that could have also helped like the campy element to it as well. And I mean, Sam Raimi is known for like great practical effects. Look at Evil Dead back in the day. I mean, that movie still looks good even till today. So
we got to come up with like our own ranking meter, right? Like, and I was suggesting 1 stale popcorn out of 5 would be like really bad, because you only have 1 stale popcorn, but like 5 stale popcorns would be pretty good for it. So where's Joel's stale popcorn meter sort of leaning towards?
I would say, can I say 2 kernels of popcorn out of 5?
Wow.
2 kernels of popcorn out of 5.
Okay.
I would say. But so if you like Sam Raimi's style, you'll like this. There's a lot of Raimi-isms that's there, but I also think it's just attached to a very, just like not that exciting idea, you know? Like the concept of the film is very obvious. But if you like what Sam Raimi does, he has a lot of fun here. A bit too much fun for my liking, but you know, all power to him, in my opinion. So,
Joel, thanks so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. What are we calling this segment?
Let's just call it Spilled Popcorn. Why not?
Done. Signed, sealed, delivered.
Spilled Popcorn, guys. See you guys again.
And finally,
Ending off now with On This Day in South African history, the 26th of January 2006. Well, on this very day, a massive fire had broken out along these lower slopes of Table Mountain here in the mother city, reportedly after a British tourist cigarette butt had ignited dry vegetation, threatening nearby suburbs and even cutting off hikers. Now, an elderly woman said to be hiking at the time died from smoke inhalation as the blaze spread rapidly in the fierce winds. One tourist, Anthony Cooper, was arrested and charged with culpable homicide and arson. However, in 2008, Cape Town Regional Court had acquitted him, saying there was reasonable doubt after whether he had set the fire in the first place. And time now for Roby's Pointless Blind Quiz. We asked the mayoral committee member of which northwest city is now facing charges of drunken driving and assault following a routine traffic stop over the weekend. Well, it's the city of Matlosana, Klerksdorp. A viral video online shows 36-year-old MMC Wesley Gang grappling with officers, arresting him for being under the influence of alcohol whilst driving. Now, he reportedly injured an officer and even smashed the back window of the traffic cop's vehicle. Gang's also the former spokesperson for the ANC Youth League. This audio courtesy of Yusuf Abramchi on X. Well, if that was your answer all along, congratulations. You don't win anything, but perhaps you do win the bragging rights of being one of the most informed persons around the Brian. Some say that's priceless indeed. Thanks so much for choosing The Lead as your news podcast of choice, now clocking more than 1 million listens since March 2025. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd like to get in touch with us, thelead@24.com is the best place to do that. You can also hit like, follow, and subscribe on all of our various platforms, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. That way you'll be best notified as to when our next edition drops. My name's Graeme Robenheimer, and so long as there's trusted news first, we'll always have The Lead.